This is your nation station, DBS Radio.
This is DBS Radio.
Sensei Radio DBS.
Two persons start, one fails. Two persons start business, one succeeds. Why? Because one advertised where only some could hear the message. The other, much wiser, advertised where everybody could hear. Right here on DBS. We cover the nation in the Eastern Caribbean from TNT to the USVI DBS. With new added transmitter power. Today, DBS is the place for advertisers. Our potential listenership base of over 5 million persons or 10 million heirs is available every day to you. The wise business person advertises here because when DBS speaks, everybody hears.
Tune in to the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs program on DBS Radio at 8 o'clock this evening. The program will also be streamed live on Facebook and on YouTube. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures on the 90 Minutes program. Registrar of Lands and Titles Vincia Auguste Francois is the guest this evening. Learn about the role and functions of the registry from 8 to 9:30 this evening on National Broadcaster DBS Radio. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures.
Good evening to our wonderful listeners. Those of you listening in Dominica and overseas, welcome to yet another program of the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs as we strive to keep you informed and to actually give you a greater insight as to the services provided by the ministry and to bring on various heads of department to share with you, in particular as it relates to matters of significance and of course which will allow you to be better citizens and will also facilitate you as you attempt to get the services that we offer for the ministry on behalf of the government and people of this beautiful country. Today we have with us the Registrar of Lands and Title, and titles, of course, issues relating to land and ownership and transfers. These are vexing issues which really concern every citizen. And the importance of land I want to stress here tonight, not only as a primary factor of production, but what it means to our survival and development as a people. Our coat of arms further amplifies the importance of land. And to us, it says, Apui Bonji Silate. I think we have to internalize that a very important reference here. And Apui Bonji Silate, after God, of course, is the land. We need land to do almost everything for our survival and human development. So tonight we have with us Mistress Vincia Auguste Francois, and she, of course, is from the Karinago territory. Good evening to you.
Good evening to you, sir.
How are you doing?
Very well, sir. Very well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm very fine. You don't have to say all the time. So it's
Wonderful.
nice to have you. So how's the temperature down where you are tonight? It must be cool and nice.
It's wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay.
Good evening also. Allow me to say good evening to our listeners and special good evening to the staff of the Land Titles Registry.
Yes. And just before we start, give us a little background information about yourself, where you're from and how you graduated through life to get to the point where you ultimately are right now as the Registrar of Land and Titles.
Thank you. My name is Vince Auguste Francois. I hail from the community of Salibia in the Kalinago territory, where I have lived most of my life. I studied at the St. Andrews High School and also at the Clifton Community College. Then I proceeded to do law at the University of Guyana in 2005. After that, I went to the Hugh Woodin Law School in Trinidad and Tobago in the year 2010. Post 2010, I was called to the bar in 2012 as an attorney at law, and I started to work at the title section of the Land Registry in 2014. Currently, I'm the acting registrar of titles, and I work at the Land Registry Division office, upstairs the post office building on the Bayfront in Roseau.
Okay. Before you take us further to just give us a walkthrough of what the department actually does, and give us a historical background of the title section. I wanted just to emphasize that your government places a significance, of course, on the whole issue of land and ownership to land. And having a parcel of land is one thing, but the whole issue of having it registered on your name or having titles for it, etc., those aspects are critical to our development as a people. And of course, once you have title, your land can be used as collateral, and this is tied into our overall comprehensive housing revolution program. So I wanted just to emphasize that as we go forward on this program. So just to make the connection between taking a deliberate decision in 2018 to have a division of title, land and titles separate to that of the general registry. As you know, before we had the general registrar, the Registrar General, who had the responsibility also for the title section. So what we have done, we have separated the two so that more deliberate emphasis can be placed on these very vexing issues with a view of bringing resolution to some of the outstanding issues as it pertains to all elements pertaining to possession and transfers and titles and just name it within your department. So I'd now go over to you to give us some further insight as to what the department does.
Yes, sir, quite correctly. So as you would recall, prior to 1999, there was one registry in the Commonwealth of Dominica, and that was the High Court Registry. At that time, it was located on the Bayfront. Also, too, there was only one registrar and one deputy registrar, and one deputy registrar unqualified. Mm-hmm. At that time also, notwithstanding that there was only one registrar, there were several sub-registrars, so to speak. So there was also, so that same registrar was responsible for the civil registry, the probate registry, the court registry, the deeds and records registry, the companies registry, and the title section as it was back then. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In 1999, yes. So in 1999, the companies registry was created. So the companies registry was removed in 1999, and in 2018, the land titles registry was created by an act of parliament. Mm-hmm. And what that means really is that a new registry, so another registry was created. Therefore, we now have 3 registries in the Commonwealth of Dominica. And the land registry is important. It's important to the citizenry, and it was important to the government at the time, in addition to the fact that in 2018, the government recognized that the title section at that time was a growing area. Mm-hmm. And so what happened, it created a lot of work for the registrar at the time and the deputy registrar, who would have to also be the registrars of all these other registries that I mentioned. And so it was a lot of work. So essentially, the new registry was created so that the Land Titles Registry could deal exclusively with the registration of certificates of titles and all matters dealing with lands in the Commonwealth of Dominica.
I think that is very significant to underscore, and I like the way you actually elaborated just now on these very salient matters. So do you have an idea? Can you give us as to your experience thus far in terms of what obtained before and now, and with a separate registry? What that means in terms of having a higher level of efficiency and effectiveness in executing your function?
Yes. So in addition to, sometimes members of the public are confused or unsure of what we actually do at the land registry. So in addition to processing your certificates of titles, we also do other things. So we note your caveats, we note your withdrawals of caveats, we note your mortgages, we note your discharge of mortgages, we process your first titles, we process your reconstructions, we administer your oaths, we do a number of other things besides just registering transfers, so to speak. Okay, so sometimes after we would have processed a certificate of title, we are happy when the title is returned to us for the noting of a caveat, for example.
So
and I like the point that...
Just hold on. Already the calls have started coming in, so I want to just alert our listeners. We will be allowing you to call just now as we allow the Registrar of Titles to just walk us through some of the functions that she has to perform. And we want to also break down some of the very vital, services that you offer to the public, and to give them a clear perspective as to what do we mean when we talk about, the various types of transfers, when we talk about direct or part transfers, when we talk about order, we talk about the fee structure and reconstruction in the event that the title gets damaged, what it means when we talk about reconstruction, and first titles, first certificate of titles. So we'll be going through those various elements here tonight, but we're just starting initially to hear from Ms. Francois, and we'll be taking your calls just now. Yeah. Continue, please. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So as I was saying, sometimes when subsequent to the processing of a title, the title is returned to us for the noting of a caveat or the noting of a mortgage. And that is significant because it tells us that the owner of that title would have visited a bank or a credit union and would have received monies. And so the institution is now bringing the title to us so that we can note the caveat and we can note the mortgage thereon. And that is important because it is important for the citizen to have that type of power in their hands, because a certificate of title gives you that power, it gives you that independence, so you can raise funds. You can go to the bank and you can ask for a loan. You can sell a piece if you want to raise funds. You can raise funds to open a company. So it gives you that power and it gives you that financial independence. And so we are always happy when we see titles coming back to us for those types of services. And so it gives us a great sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, knowing that our job is assisting members of the public in realizing their own dreams. So our jobs are important in the service that we execute and in the service that we deliver to the public.
Okay, what can you say about your staff in terms of they enjoy what they do and always willing to serve the public? Because one of the things that we're trying to do within the ministry is to create the kind of mindset that through the various departments, the employees who are actually engaged at the various departments are in service to the people. And therefore, it's absolutely important to make yourself available in a very friendly way and professional way to the members of the public.
Absolutely. Customer service is very important to us. At the Land Titles Registry, we cannot get away from the members of the public. We see customers every day. So it is one of the divisions with high traffic. So there is no day which goes by that a customer will not come into the land registry, whether it is to conduct a title search, whether it is to find out the status of their matter, whether it is to to see the registrar to ask something, whether it's to administer an oath, whatever it is, every day we have the lawyers' clerks, we have the surveyors, we have members of the public. And so customer service is very important to us. And I will tell you that the staff of the land registry is customer oriented. Most of them have been serving in the land registry for, some of them even before I started working at the land registry, that they have been there. And so our staff is customer oriented. They recognize the service that we give. They recognize the importance of the service that we deliver to the public. And in addition to that, I will tell you that members of the public do commend our staff when they come to receive service from the land registry.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that. Just as I wanted to ask you, and maybe to before Hurricane Maria, and now we have moved to a new location where the government spent over $3 million to retrofit the 2 floors upstairs of the public post office building. The environment now, and how do you see it? Does it actually create a more conducive environment to better allow you and your staff to do your work?
Yes, sir. So prior to moving to the post office building, we were at the former location on the Bayfront as well. Of course, for those people who have visited the former location, they would recall the structure, and they would recall the size of the location. It was a much smaller building, and we were located in a much smaller area. Right now, since the move, we have a larger office. We have more space for the employees to conduct their transactions. We have more space for members of the public also to do their presentations, to also conduct their searches, to check their out of order. So the space is a great improvement from what we had at the last location.
Okay, great. And do you want to give us the public an idea as to the various sections you have within your department?
Yes, sir. So one of the main areas that we have, and what we receive a lot of traffic with on a daily basis, so we conduct title searches. So, for example, the banks, the surveyors, and a lot of people who are interested in finding out whether a person have registered lands, they would come to the registry to conduct what we call a title search. So, for example, if somebody wants to know whether Mrs. Francois is the owner of a portion of land, they would come to the land registry. They would give my name to the clerk who is there, and the clerk would go onto our system and search the records. All right. If anything comes up, the clerk would inquire as to whether you want a copy or whether you just want to have a look at my certificate of title. So we conduct title searches, we conduct presentations. So all presentations happen, presentations of all transfer documents, caveats, first titles, conversions, reconstructions, withdrawals, mortgages, etc. All of those are presented at the land registry. And when I say presented, what it means is that if you employ a lawyer, your lawyer will do that on your behalf. If you are doing it on your own, then you would come to the land registry and you would present your documents in the presentation book, which means that you will sit and you will actually enter it by writing in details what you would be presenting on that occasion.
Okay.
So we do that as well.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes. We also accept your transfers. We process your certificates of titles. We process your request for first certificates of titles, your request for reconstructions, all of those things. We conduct that. We do that on a daily basis, which includes printing, drafting, execution, and all of that.
Okay, great. So far, so good. I thought you said you were shy, but maybe because you're maybe within your comfort zone, but I want to commend you thus far for the manner in which you have presented. Okay, we have heard so many different captions and you hear about things like deeds and titles. Do you want to give us, before we go into the whole issue of the types of transfers, and give the public an understanding as to whether there's some degree of sameness or difference between deeds and titles?
Yes, sir. So deeds and certificates of titles are different. Certificates of titles refers to land that is already registered, which means that it is entered in the register of titles. And so there is a certificate of title in existence for a particular portion of land. I have described a certificate of title, and most persons may have seen one. If you have not, a certificate of title would contain the plan of the land. It would have the date the title was issued. It would have the reference for the title. It would have the description of the title. It would have the signature of the registrar on it, and it would have the seal of the registrar also. That is a certificate of title. A deed is different. A deed is an instrument for dealings referring to unregistered lands. So, for example, there are different types of deeds. There are deeds of gifts, there are deeds of conveyance as well. Okay? And normally how these are used to bring lands onto the registered system. So, for example, in Dominica, we have two types of land, basically. We have registered lands that I have described just now, and we have unregistered lands. So to bring lands onto the registered system, sometimes you will use a deed. So for example, if my mother have a portion of land in wherever in Dominica, it is unregistered. She has a portion of unregistered lands. That means that she doesn't have a certificate of title, but she owns that land, but it is unregistered. She wants to give it to me, and I want to register that portion of land. Very likely, I will have to execute, I will have to cause my lawyer to prepare a deed of gift from my mom. So my mom will execute that deed of gift in my favor. I will then take that deed of gift after she has executed it, and then I will take it to the deeds registry to be registered. What that means is that the deeds registrar would stamp it, she would date it, she would give it a folio number, she would enter it into her register, and she would sign it once it complies with all of the statutory requirements, meaning that it was duly signed, I have paid my fees on it, what else? I have put my adhesive stamps on it and all of that. Once it is in order, the registrar signs it, and I will get it back. Or if I use a lawyer, my lawyer will get it back, and I can now use that deed of gift to proceed with making my application for a first certificate of title.
Okay. And I asked that question deliberately, and so to allow us to do that interview here tonight, well, this discussion by way of precision. So we'll now migrate into a first certificate of title. But before you do that, just continue what you were saying just now.
So in addition to that, that's a deed of gift, just to make the distinction between a deed of gift and a deed of conveyance. So no consideration was passed between my mom and me. It's my mother, she gave it to me. However, if my mother has that same portion of land and she wants to sell it to somebody, so somebody wants to buy it from her, then she would execute a deed of conveyance.
Okay.
So consideration would pass, the person would pay her, she would execute what is referred to as a deed of conveyance. So in that deed, it would reference the amount of money she was paid, etc. It would describe the land, she would execute it. She would give it to the buyer. The buyer would now take it to the would take it to the deeds registry. It would be registered, returned to the buyer, and the buyer can now use that deed to make his application for first certificate of title.
Excellent, excellent. So as you're there, let us just start talking about the first certificate of title, what it entails and the processes involved.
Okay. So for first certificates of titles, and again, just to just to bring back to our memory, first certificate of title, which means that the land was never registered. So you now want to register it. Again, you can do so by deed. One of the principal things that to remember is that you must satisfy the statutory requirement of 30 years possession. So, for example, the same land which my mother wanted to give me, again, I may not have occupied it for 30 years, but my mother and perhaps her relatives before her who owned the land, they would have occupied for the statutory period of the 30 years. So the base really for first certificates of titles is to satisfy the requirement that you and your predecessors in title would have occupied and owned the land undisturbed for a period of 30 years. We normally recommend, because first certificates of titles are elaborate. They're not your standard transfers. So they are different in the sense that you have to prepare a lot more documents for first certificates of titles. And so we recommend that customers use a solicitor to assist them in that regard. So for first certificates of titles, you need a number of documents. You have to present your request. Your application have to be supported by 2 additional affidavits. So in addition to yours, you have to get 2 persons who know about the land to speak about it and speak about their knowledge of the land for at least 30 years. So your affidavit, in addition to 2 supporting affidavits, is required. In addition to that, you have to place notice of your application in the newspaper. So for those of us who still buy the newspapers and read the newspaper, you will notice that there's an area in the newspaper where persons would put notice that they are applying for a first certificate of title, to give the public notice that that they have presented to the land registry as a request for first certificate of title.
If you were to pause there a bit, just for the purpose of information and emphasis, what is the importance of giving the public that type of notice?
Good. So in addition to the notice, I will answer that question. So in addition to the notice in the newspaper, notice also have to be served on the adjacent owners. The purpose of that is to ensure that once you have complied with everything and it goes to the judge and the judge issues you the certificate of title, she approves your application, then your certificate is what they refer to as indefeasible. Now, the purpose of the notice is to put other persons on notice who may have an interest. Now, if these other persons have an interest in the portion of land, they have an opportunity to place a caveat on your application. And then that is a whole new different process. So in other words, if you come to the registry and you place an application before the registrar fraudulently, you understand, and you have no interest and right to bring that application, the law says you must place notice in the newspaper for 2 weeks, 2 consecutive weeks. In addition to that, you must serve notice on the adjacent persons. And so all these safeguards are necessary. They are necessary steps to ensure that at the end of it, when the judge would have approved the application, you understand, they would have given everybody notice, and the judge eventually gives her fiat or his fiat, then that certificate of title is indefeasible.
Yes.
Means that no other person is able to challenge that certificate of title.
Okay. And how long does the process or processes take before that person who has made an application for a first certificate of title, how long it takes? If everything is in perfect order. Okay.
If everything is in order, well, prior to all things becoming in order, after it is placed in the newspaper, it must stay at the registry for a period of 6 weeks without us touching it. So it stays there, just waiting for, if perchance somebody would present a caveat or some type of objection. After the period of 6 weeks expires...
Sorry, you say it must stay there for 6 weeks. Is there a legal reason for that?
Yes, Yes, absolutely. So it stays there for that period to give persons opportunity, because you would have been in the papers for the 2 weeks, then you would have served the adjacent owners. You understand? So all of these persons, all of these people are aware now that somebody, well, the applicant is making an application for a certificate of title. So it gives the persons who may have an interest an opportunity to place an objection.
No,
So after that,
the reason why we're doing that is to give the listeners a clear understanding as to why sometimes when you make such an application, it's not something you can get in 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
right away.
Right away. Okay. Yes. Continue,
Yes.
please. Yeah.
In addition to that, we have also seen an increase in applications for certificates of titles as well. So that is another factor. So in addition to the application having to remain at the registry untouched for a period of 6 weeks, subsequent to that, it has to be reviewed. And for those of us who are familiar with the application for first certificate of titles, you would know that it consists of a number of documents, and somebody has to sit at their desk and go through all of them. You understand? Go through all the documents individually to make sure that all is in order with that particular application. So the request is in order, the supporting affidavits are correct, you have your appropriate valuation, your plans are correct, your abstract is fine, your common affidavit is there, the newspaper clippings are there, the affidavit of service of notice is there, and all of the documents are there and that they are in order. And so that I will tell you, that can take some time, because you can well imagine the number of applications that we receive for first certificates of titles on a yearly basis.
And I thought I'm saying that you wanted to insert, but you've been very technical, that are incomplete.
Excuse me, sir?
I said maybe you wanted to say, but in a technical way, a number of applications also having been received by your department. Some of them are not in order. Some of them are not right.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. So sometimes we receive applications that are incomplete. I will tell you that.
Okay.
So sometimes they have half of the documents. Clearly, the officer who is vetting it is not even going to look at it because documents are missing from it. So it will not go further than remaining in the pending section, waiting the remainder of the documents. Also, too, in addition to that, it may be that having reviewed the application, it is lacking or it is irregular for some reason, and it has to go back to the lawyer or the applicant for making corrections. And so that can take some time as well.
Apart from the lawyer or applicant, another important area is one of the survey documents. The hatching of the land itself.
Okay, so for first titles, we don't do hatching off, so that first titles are different.
Right.
Hatch offs are for part transfers, which we will refer
Right.
to
in a while
when we discuss.
So
Yes.
the reason why we've done is also to give the public a clear understanding as to what a first certificate of title actually entails. Because sometimes we have it wrong. And then we'll move across to the part and direct transfers. So
Yes.
you have at least 6 weeks that it must stay on it within the registry itself, untouched. And
Yes,
then
sir.
and then once you have no impediments and you have no standing issues, what is the next step?
Okay, so once the officer would review the application and it's fine, then we place it in the batch to go to one of the judges for review. So all first certificate applications must go to the judge, must. So the registrar doesn't approve first certificates of titles. I just want the public to understand that and to know that. We vet them. Sometimes I vet them, I review them, but I do not approve them. It has to go to a judge for approval.
And that is
Once it is approved,
a statutory requirement.
absolutely.
Okay, so I think it's important for
Once-
us to
Yes.
emphasize that is a requirement by law. So sometimes people call me and people say things publicly. I've gotten a few messages so far, and sometimes asking questions and making assertions that has absolutely nothing to do with the Register of Titles or the staff or the department on the whole.
Yes, sir. Also, too, after the application would have gone to the judge, at that point, the judge may also ask for something additional. Most times it is approved, but sometimes the judge can ask for something additional, or the judge can put it out of order for some reason. Okay? So I want the public to also understand that aspect.
Okay. So I think that you have clearly explained all the elements involved in the processes or the process to be followed for first certificate of titles. Now let's move to another area.
One last thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so one last thing, the exciting part. So once the judge approves it, once we send it to the judge and he or she approves it, then it comes back to us and then we issue it within a couple of days.
Yeah.
Once it is approved, then within a couple of days, we will issue you your certificate of title.
Now, the reason why that's important, because if it hasn't gone through that protracted process and it gets back to you, one would hate to believe that it will stay on your desk indefinitely.
Not at all, sir. Not
Okay,
at all,
fine.
sir. We take this issue very, very seriously. And me personally, I will tell you, it is important to me to have the title of the citizens in their hands as soon as possible. That is important to us.
So there's
because we recognize how important it is.
So you're saying here tonight there's absolutely no element of indifference as far as your department is concerned to the needs and concerns of the people who have applied for the titles.
That is correct.
Okay, fine. Okay, we're talking to the Registrar of Titles, Land and Titles, Miss Vincere August Foswa, and so far she's doing a great job. And in a while we shall open up the lines so you can call and ask your questions or seek clarification on any matter relating to a function. But let us go to a next area we want to talk about tonight, and it has to do with transfers. And
can we talk about reconstructions, as they are sort of not similar?
Well,
but,
there's almost a nexus, but I mean between. Yeah, but let's do that reconstructions. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, let's do reconstructions. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we should do transfers first.
I was thinking
we can do reconstructions.
We can do either, but whatever
yes.
you feel more comfortable. So to do,
yes.
you can.
Let's do transfers first.
Okay, fine. That's okay with me.
Let's do transfers. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So transfers. Mm-hmm. So transfer. There are two types of transfers. There's a direct transfer and there's a PAT transfer. And these types of transfers relate, of course, to registered lands. Mm-hmm. Just to clarify for members of the public, PAT transfers, direct transfers. Once you refer to transfer, you are referring to registered lands. Mm-hmm. And I emphasize that because sometimes members of the public would visit at the registry to inquire on their transactions, and they are unable to tell us what is the nature of their transaction. And I will tell you why. If you're unable to tell us the nature of your transaction, then it makes it difficult for us to give you a status, because we will not be able to find your transaction. So transfers refer to registered lands. Mm-hmm. Direct transfers and PAT transfers, these are the two types. Direct transfers refer to where, for example, I would have a portion of land. I would have a certificate of title for a portion of land, let's say 1 acre. And I want to sell that entire 1 acre to a buyer. Or I want to gift that 1 acre to a member of my family, let's say my daughter. All of it, that is a direct transfer. I am selling all, or I'm giving all the portion of land in my title. That is a direct transfer. A PAT transfer is where, for example, I have, let's say, 10 acres of land, and I am selling 5 acres, or I'm selling 1 acre, or I am giving somebody 1 acre or 2 acres. That is a PAT transfer. Generally, direct transfers takes less time to process than PAT transfers. So, for example, for a direct transfer, that will take us, let's say, 6 to 10 weeks to process, whereas a PAT transfer can take some time. And I will tell you one of the reasons for that is that for part transfers, there's a requirement for what we refer to as a hatch off. Now, some time ago, I explained that normally when we process titles, we process them in pairs. What that means is that any issue of a new title, we essentially prepare 2 of those titles. We give the registered proprietor 1, and we keep 1 at the land registry. So when you sell a portion of your land to a buyer, or you give your daughter or son or your spouse a portion, that is a part transfer, and the documents come to the land registry, in addition to all of the other requirements, like you need your survey plans, you need your valuation, you need your ID, you need your duly executed memorandum of transfer. In addition to that, your surveyor also has to come to the land registry physically. So he has to come to the registry in our vault, and he has to mark off on the title that particular portion of land that was sold to you, the buyer, or which was given to the member of your family. And that is referred to as a hatch off. If that particular aspect is not done, we cannot proceed with the processing stage. We just cannot go on. So in other words, if the hatch off is not done, you cannot get your title. So the hatch-off stage is important for part transfers to move along the processing line.
Okay, I would like you to go over that again, because so many times that is a major impediment, and to the extent to which people may blame the registry and not knowing what precisely are the impediments. So I'm asking that what can the division do to try to mitigate against that, or to apprise the people who are so affected? Because there are times, people say everything is before the registrar, and it's in, and then but documents are missing. But and sometimes you have lawyers, you have surveyors, but who actually within the registry who can call if somebody comes in and the person has the expectation that all the documents have been submitted? How do you assist those people who are in that predicament they themselves did not create?
So that is a good question, because sometimes the customers will come in for a status report, and when we do inquire into the transaction, we find out that the transaction is awaiting hatch off in the surveyor's drawer. Now, over the years, of course, we have developed quite a good working relationship with the surveyors, and so we impress upon them the importance of conducting the hatch off. But we can only go so far. We can only impress. We can try our best. And so sometimes when a customer would come repeatedly and they would really impress upon us the importance of, they needing that certificate of title, we sometimes have to really, really, really try our best to ask the surveyor to conduct that hatch off for that customer. Again, sometimes I let the customer know it is not our duty per se to get the surveyor to do it. We cannot make the surveyors do the hatch off, but we can only impress upon them, and we can try our best, because we have this working relationship with them, to see how much they can do and how quickly they can conduct a hatch off for somebody who really is in dire need of their certificate of title.
And I guess you're willing to take some questions tonight before we call it a night on this program. That would be okay with you? Because yes, we have 1 or 2 people who have called so far, but I wanted you just to expound a bit on some of the salient issues there. Now, you have dealt with direct and part transfers. Have you adequately within your mind explained that?
Yes, I'm satisfied that persons would have get an understanding of the difference and appreciate sometimes why a part transfer is taking such a longer time to process.
No. And so, on average, based on your experience, being involved in that work for a long period of time, a part transfer, on average, how long it takes? I mean that is contingent upon a number of factors, as you rightly said just now, insofar as ensuring that all the documentation or documentations are actually presented to the registry. But on average, how long would it take for a part transfer to be executed?
Yes, it can take several months. It can actually take several months, up to, I will tell you quite honestly, it can take years. It can take years. We try our best to impress upon the surveyors. We try to, indicate to them the importance of doing it. And so it's a work in progress. And we are trying. And we try our best to impress upon the surveyors.
Yeah, so I think it is important to ventilate those issues there, because it's a responsibility on all of us, and to behave as good citizens, to ensure that people who have entrusted us to execute on our behalf, or people who have been paid to do certain things on our behalf, that they do so. So I believe by providing that kind of information, we can search our individual consciences and to do what is right and what is ethical to push the process forward. Because government can only do so much. Government can provide the services, ensure that by law, whoever the minister is, has to ensure that they provide proper accommodation, or so how you want to call it, for those very important legal instruments. The law specifies that, and that's so. But we can do all those things, but we have a responsibility. Those of us who have been entrusted to do certain actions on behalf of the people of Dominica. And so that's one area, and so especially as it speaks to part transfers, that we have been having some challenges, and we're hoping that by putting out more information out there, and people can engage people who they have paid, and to make sure that they, in a more diligent manner, act on the behalf. So we're 1 minute past 9 o'clock. In a while, we shall be opening up the line, as I said just now. But we have heard about out of order. Documents are out of order, etc., other things. I wanted you just to emphasize on that a bit, so that the listening public can have a better perspective.
So at the land registry, we have what we refer to as an out of order section, or an out of order area. And basically what that means is that when transactions come to the land registry and it is reviewed, if it does not comply with the statutory requirements, or if there is some error with either the plans, the valuation, or if there's an error on the face of the documents, then it is placed out of order for the applicant or the solicitor to make the necessary corrections. And in the same way as the hatch-off is done, is encumbered, similarly, if the corrections are not done, or the amendments, whatever is required, is not done when the documents are placed out of order, they will remain out of order, and the transaction will not be processed. So in other words, you may consult with a solicitor, or you may do your own work in person, because persons are allowed to do that. And if it is placed out of order by the registrar or the deputy registrar unqualified, and the corrections are not made, then it will continue to remain there and will not receive the certificate of title.
Yeah, but so what can be done though in situations like that? To call people who are so responsible, and because it's a small country, a small island, so we would know what the major players. And sometimes the people who are actually trying to get that service or trying to get that transaction done are people sometimes who do not know better, and if they're not properly advised, it can be a problem. So something's out of order, and you go through it and you see on the surface of it that something is missing, and you would have known, having examined it, who is responsible. So is it something irregular to do, maybe to call the person and say, hello, you have brought a document on behalf of that person. The person has been coming for the past couple of months. There are people going up and down, and it's not right. It's just right. And they have paid for services, and they're coming up and down, and nobody there to come to the rescue. And so, to simply just put the document aside and say out of order, don't you think there's a moral responsibility, although there's no legal responsibility on our part, on your part, but to call the person who's so responsible and say, hello, this person, this client of yours has been coming in for a long period of time, and it hurts my heart. We think that you should proceed to do what you have to do. Are there times you have such engagements?
Absolutely, sir. So like I mentioned earlier, there are two ways to conduct your business at the land registry. You can do it by yourself in person, or you may retain a solicitor to do your work on your behalf. In the event that you conduct your own work in person, generally when you come to present, we request your telephone number. When it is placed out, if it is placed out of order, then we consult you. We call you, we give you a call, and we tell you that your documents are out of order, that you need to come into the registry to check on it. So that is fairly easy enough. Where a solicitor is retained, for every solicitor in Dominica at the land registry, we have allocated spots for each lawyer, allocated a special spot for their out of order. So, for example, if I am a solicitor in Dominica in private practice, Vincent August Francois, I would have an out of order at the land registry. And so every out of order transaction for me would go into that cubicle. Now, my clerk, when she comes, she would go in there and she would review the transactions, and she would see that the registrar placed a particular transaction out of order. And you are quite right. Sometimes a customer would come in frequently and they would inquire about the status of the matter, and we would have to tell them that the transaction is out of order. If they come back repeatedly, sometimes we get involved because we have such a good working relationship with our solicitors and the clerks. We would inform them that, this particular customer came into the registry. They inquired about their transaction. Can you facilitate? Can you make the correction? Can you assist, and so forth? So we do have a good working relationship, and we do, to my mind, go beyond the call of duty sometimes to assist again, because we recognize the importance of a certificate of title to the customer.
Okay, excellent. So that's nice to know. Now, where the time is flying tonight, and the number to call just now, if you want to call, is 1-800-327 or 448-3284. Let's look at the fee structure. We talk about fees, and I think that is something that people want to know.
Very important. Fees are very, very important. So the matter of fees for land transfers, as with all things, is important. It is important for the customer to know what they have to pay. Customers want to know how much money is required of them, and it's important for them to know the percentage of the fees. Okay, and sometimes customers would call into the registry, they would call over the phone, and they are free to do so. They can call us at 266-3015. We are always available. They can call to find out about the fees. And so they want to find out whether at all they are entitled to a discount. They want to know how they can save, etc. So fees are very important to the customers. In 2020, there was a reduction in transfer fees. But in addition to that, I also want to highlight that in particular circumstances, the fee structure is reduced. So, for example, notwithstanding that there is a standard fee, in certain circumstances where, for example, there's a transfer between spouses, that is transfers between husbands and wives, or a transfer between parents and children, there is a discount in the fees. Also, too, where there is a transfer to a beneficiary, whether it is under a will or under intestacy, there is a reduction in the transfer fees. So fees are important, and persons want to know what the fees are. Generally, if you purchase in land, so for example, if I'm going to buy a portion of land from a stranger, it's not my husband, it's not my child, I did not get it under a will, I did not get it on the intestacy of anybody of mine who died, I'm just buying. The fees are, you would have to pay 2% stamp duty, you would have to pay 1% assurance fund, and you would have to pay 1% judicial fee. That is since 2020 with the reduction in the fees.
You're talking about
prior to that.
So you're talking about deliberate act by the government.
That is correct.
To do that, and it has continued over the years. So, and then
Yes.
okay, fine.
So prior to 2020, a buyer would have had to pay 4% stamp duty as opposed to 2%, and they would have had to pay 2.5% judicial fee as opposed to 1% now. So that would have been the fees to be paid to the government by a purchaser, somebody who is buying a portion of land. They're not getting it from their spouse, they're not getting it from their mother or father, etc. They're not getting it on the will. That is the standard transfer fees. If you're getting, for example, if you're getting a portion of land from your spouse, your husband or wife, the fees are 1% assurance, 1% judicial. So it is significantly reduced. It is among the lowest, okay? 1% assurance, 1% judicial. Where it is between parents and children, there's also a discount between parents and children, transfers between parents and children. They pay 2% stamp duty, they pay 1% assurance, they pay 1% judicial, and there is no vendor's fee payable. Okay, so also between spouses too, there's no vendor's fee, of course, no vendor's fee for transfers between spouses, and no vendor's fee also for transfers between parents and children. Fees for reconstruction is 1% assurance. So reconstruction refers to when you would have been issued your certificate of title and you would have misplaced it, you lost it, you damaged it, you laminate it, you cannot account for it. You make an application to the registrar to replace that lost or damaged title, you have to pay fees. And so those fees are 1% assurance, 1% judicial, and $7.50 stamp duty. Also, too, I want to highlight in 2020, the government also had a reduction in the transfer fees for reconstruction. And the fees are as follows. So, for example, if you are if you're making an application for reconstruction of your title because you lost it, you misplaced it, you cannot account for it, and you make an application to the registrar, and your fees, when your lawyer or yourself calculate the fees, and it amounts to $5,000 and above, then you would just pay a flat fee of $5,000.
No.
Let me try to explain it again, because I think just so we have some clarity.
Yes.
So where, for example, you lost your title, you cannot account for it, you misplaced it, or it was damaged in Maria, for example, you make an application, and you must make an application for reconstruction, because sometimes people come to the land registry and they would say to me, Ms. Ogis, I lost my title. It was in my home, I have been searching for it, and I just cannot find it. And I say to them, you first have to exhaust your search. You have to make sure that you are satisfied that you cannot produce that title, because I cannot issue a photocopy to you and I cannot just issue you a new one. You understand? Sometimes they feel that they can just come to the registry, tell me it is missing or it is damaged, and I can just produce a new one for them. That is not the case. You have to make an application to the registrar. You have to do a request. So that is a document you have to prepare, or your lawyer will prepare for you. You have to do an affidavit. So you must tell me the circumstances of the title, where it was, where you may have lost it, the circumstances of the misplacement or the damage, etc. You must give me those details in an affidavit. Also, too, the notice of that application must be advertised in the newspaper. So you must publish in one issue of the newspaper. So in 1 week, you must publish in the newspaper, and you may have seen it before in the newspaper when you would, buy a newspaper and you would read, you would see persons would be making applications for a new certificate of title because they would have lost their title.
So it's not a simple replacement.
It's not a simple.
You have to go through some requirements by law. Instead, you have to follow, and in order to effect a reconstruction.
That is correct. So you place your notice of your request in the newspaper, and again, it has to stay at the registry for a period of 6 weeks before we can issue a new certificate of title to you. And I will tell you why. Because in that period, you may find the title. That is one. Or two, sometimes, a member of the public may get the certificate of title. And so we do not want to just be issuing new certificates of title willy-nilly. Because what eventually happens is once we are satisfied that the 6 weeks has expired and the title was not produced, you have not recovered it, what we do, because, and you will recall, we have our own. So our own is intact. Your own is missing, but we have our title at the land registry. What the registrar actually does is the registrar will cancel the one that we have in our vault. We will cancel it and we'll issue a new pair. All right, so that new pair has a new number, it has a new reference, it has a current date, etc. So then we will give you the new one and we will keep a copy of the new one as well. Okay, and so that is reconstruction. And when you do that, you must pay fees. And so that's why I tell when persons come to the registry and they pick up their titles, I tell them, for example, to secure the certificate of titles. It is important, keep it in a safe place, because if you damage it, if you laminate it, if you, for some reason you cannot produce it, you have to reconstruct it, and that comes with a cost.
Okay, let's just take a short break there and then take a breather there. And we'll come back and open up the lines, because one you just started, quite a few calls coming in. So now we can open up the line if you want to call and ask a question or seek further clarification from the registrar of land and titles. You can do so. The number to call is 1-800-327 or 448-3284.
Tune in to the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs program on DBS Radio at 8 o'clock this evening. The program will also be streamed live on Facebook and on YouTube. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures on the 90 Minutes program. Registrar of Lands and Titles Vincia Auguste Francois is the guest this evening. Learn about the role and functions of the registry from 8 to 9:30 this evening on National Broadcaster DBS Radio. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures.
Back live. Before, as we're about to wind up, there is now 20 minutes after 8 o'clock. Good evening, we're live on DBS Radio. Good night. How are you doing?
From Gambia.
Okay, fine.
I have a personal land that I got from the government. But actually, take a benefit and I don't like to see it. So, how much
I'm not hearing you clearly. You're kind of muffled like. I'm not sure what is wrong.
All right. Grand Bay.
You're from Grand Bay, yes.
Right. And I said I bought a piece of land from the government area, housing scheme area.
Mm-hmm.
It's close to 5,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
I have it at the in the after my thing I must have full.
Okay. If you listen to me, can you lower down? You listen to something in the background. Can you lower it down, please? And
Yes,
just take a time, and because we're not hearing you clearly. Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I look at it now. Is anything better now?
Yes, a little better. Can you just go over?
Okay. I said I am from Granby.
You're from Granby.
I bought a piece of land, about 5,000 square feet of land at the housing scheme area. But in the I have with one or two folders and it has some creek on.
Maybe you can call back, please, because I already have difficulty in understanding what you're saying, and I'm almost certain Mrs. August, Mrs. Foswell. All I'm hearing is that you bought a piece of land from the government from the housing scheme in Granby.
Yes.
But I'm not hearing the rest.
And I said Maria, Hurricane Maria. Free fold, and I put it in a island. I put up fold it so that it wet. I on it, and then I would like to get it reconstruct.
Okay, so are you saying that you bought up some land from the government, you got the title, but something happened to the title?
Yeah, I have the title. Nothing actually.
Okay, can you please call back because I'm having difficulty hearing you? Please call back before we leave. Okay. Thank you very much. Fine. Yes, Mrs. Francois.
Yes, we're so sorry. Yes, I was unable to get anything at all from the caller.
Yeah, but okay. So as we're there, we're just 9 minutes to the end of this very important program here tonight. In light of some of the reduction we have seen in fees, have you seen a corresponding increase in the number of transactions as a result of that?
I believe so. I verily believe so. Also, too, we are now conducting a thorough tabulation, and so I will leave it up to the minister if he wishes to actually make that public.
Okay.
So by very likely sometime.
Okay, we have an excellent. Let me see.
Wednesday.
Just hold on a while, please, Mrs. Francois.
Sure.
We have a caller.
Sure.
Hello. Good evening. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I said I have my title. I have the title, but I fold it in free fold, and then that reconstructed.
Oh, you sold it in free pieces?
Pardon me?
You sold it?
Fold.
Oh,
he
folded.
He folded it. He folded it.
Okay, yeah, okay, folded. Okay, yes.
So because of this folded, that will increase. So we have to reconstruct it. How much we have to pay for that?
Okay. I'm certain that Mrs. Sponsor, you heard that. I think a while ago you went for the processes.
Yes.
And it will be the same answer, but maybe you want to go over it.
Yes. Also, too, I want to highlight. Sometimes he said he folded it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it is really what I would suggest to him that he bring it to us. Let us have a look at it to see the extent of right.
Okay.
That would give us a better indication as to whether
it was actually damaged.
He should go through the expense
right.
of actually reconstructing it.
Yes.
Okay, sir?
All right.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And your office is upset of the
Yes,
that
sir.
is correct.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you very much for that.
Okay, you're most welcome, sir. Have a nice night.
Okay, officer.
Fine, cool. Yes, very, very interesting question there. And then we may have instances like that, like those. So it's important that somebody or people who are listening with a similar situation can come to you, and you can examine the title to see whether the document to see whether it's okay.
That is correct.
Yes. Okay, it's now 24 minutes after 9 o'clock. I think we had so much tonight. I think the public is well informed, and so of course, should be better informed tonight based on the information that we have shared here tonight. And we have 5 more minutes to go. And is there anything that you would like to just recap before we leave here tonight?
Just to highlight the need for the safekeeping of your certificate of titles, because one of the things, and like I just indicated to the caller, we know it's a cost for you to reconstruct, and we really do not want you to undergo, to our mind, something that is unnecessary if you do not have to do it. And so we do encourage you to keep your certificates of titles safe. Sometimes people go to the extent of laminating the titles. We do not want you to laminate the title. I'll tell you why. Because when you laminate the title, you essentially damage the title. You cannot conduct a a hatch off on it. We cannot note a caveat on it because we have to actually use our stamp to impress upon the title. So it causes some distress for you when you laminate your title. We cannot conduct a transaction on it for you, and we have to actually advise you to reconstruct it when you laminate it. So please keep it safe, but do not laminate it.
Okay. Now, there are some people, I've forgotten, some people messaged my phone, and even tonight, talking about documents go missing at your department. Is there any element of truth to that?
Documents do not go missing at the land registry. Again, I want to underscore, because at the land registry, we do handle a large volume of documents. So imagine the number of solicitors in Dominica, and you very well have an idea of the number of transfers and part transfers and reconstructions and requests for certificates of titles that they would do on a yearly basis. And all of those applications come to the land registry. You understand? And it is human hands who deal with them. It's my hands and the hands of my staff. And so sometimes it may be misplaced. I always say that. It may be misplaced, but it's not lost. It's not lost. You understand? So we always recover our documents. And so documents do not go missing at the land registry.
And then you would have a particular methodology that you use upon receipt,
of course,
to ensure
yes.
that
we do, yes. In addition to that, we do have safeguards, because again we recognize that we are all human beings, and we touch the document, so we have certain measures in place. So when I put something out of order, for example, I note it, so it's entered into a log. Every time I place something out of order, anytime something is removed from the out of order, it is logged into that log ledger. And so we do have certain things in place to ensure that documents go from one point to the next point to the next point to the next point until it is at the end of the processing line. So for example, when documents are first presented, it is entered into the book. Then it goes into a particular area. Then one clerk is responsible for getting it out of that area and bringing it into an area where we scan all the documents. After it is scanned, it is placed into a particular area, so the registrar reviews it. When the registrar reviews it, it either goes out of order or it moves on to be processed. After it moves on, whether it is placed out of order or it goes on to be processed, it is drafted. So it goes to a different area. Post-drafting, it comes back to the registrar for second review. After that, it is sent to be printed. After it is printed, it comes back to the registrar again for signing, and then it goes to another officer for it to be sealed and dated before it is actually delivered. So it's a bit of a process, and many hands are involved in the processing of your titles. I do not do it alone. So all of our hands come together to ensure that at the end product, you get your certificate of title, which is nice and clean, that you can conduct your business with.
Okay, but do you have dockets? Let's say Tom Harry makes an application. Would you have specific dockets per individuals? Well, per applicants.
So for first applications, every applicant gets a folder. So their name is on the folder, and if, for example, a particular lawyer is responsible for making that application, it is placed in that particular lawyer's deep for the time being. So there are many mechanisms in place to ensure that things are placed where they're supposed to be. You understand? So when I go on the system, for example, because we use the ULIS system for processing our certificates of titles, I can see where a particular transaction is at a particular given time. You understand? Well, I hope the public is understanding what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So for example, if if somebody comes in and they have their title reference, I can put the title reference into my computer system and see the status of that transaction. So I can say, for example, that particular transaction is for second review. I can say it is for printing. I can say it is for scanning. I can see when it was presented, for example. I can see almost all details of the particular transaction by just inputting the reference of the title into my system. So we do have certain mechanisms to ensure the security of the documents once they are presented at the land registry.
Okay, very, 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 very clear. And tonight, Mrs. Francois, I want to commend you highly for taking time to be with us tonight. I know that you recently had a newly born, and that demonstrates a certain level of commitment by you to your job and to the people of Dominica. And that is something we'll continue to do within the ministry, to try to keep the public informed on those the type of services that we in the ministry provide, and how we can better assist you. And I believe by bringing out the information on the services that we offer as a ministry and as a government by extension, that we can have a more informed public. So people, after listening to this program, will have a better understanding of their own personal responsibility or responsibilities when they're making application or they're seeking assistance from someone, be it a lawyer, be it a surveyor, or if they're conducting a business by themselves, there are certain things that they themselves need to do. And or if they're seeking assistance from somebody else, they have a certain level of expectation, having been more informed as to the responsibility and the knowledge. So I want to thank you very much for taking time out here tonight. You were very articulate, very clear, and I think added some more value to the topic here tonight by bringing it out to the various members of the public in Dominica and people outside of Dominica who have interest in what we have shared here tonight. So have a nice night, and we'll see you again. And thank you very much for, again, taking time out to be here tonight and to speak with us. And let me let you go you can attend to your newly born and your significant
I want to
mother.
say, yes, I want to say thank you for being on the program as well. And I also want to say that we are always happy to share with the public, because an informed public is important. An informed public also helps us when they come to the land registry and they are able to articulate the nature of their transactions, for example. That is helpful to us. So we are happy to share. I'm always happy to give information to members of the public. We are open. Our office is always open. I am available to the public. And so I am always happy to share information. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night, and thank you to our wonderful listeners. Those of you who are listening within your homes from Dominica and overseas, and we will be speaking with you again sometimes. The last Thursday of this month, on another important topic area, so that we can continue as a ministry and as a government to serve you, the people of Dominica. Good night, and keep on listening to your number one station, DBS Radio.
Tune in to the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs program on DBS Radio at 8 o'clock this evening. The program will also be streamed live on Facebook and on YouTube. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures on the 90 Minutes program. Registrar of Lands and Titles Vincia Auguste Francois is the guest this evening. Learn about the role and functions of the registry from 8 to 9:30 this evening on National Broadcaster DBS Radio. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures.
This is your nation station.